Hello, good morning to everyone. This is Dr.Kausar, Unnisa, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce and Management, GFGC KGF. So today in this class, we are going to have a discussion on Unit 2 of Classification and Tabulation of Data. Before going to study about the classification and tabulation of data, we can have a discussion on collection of data. In the previous classes and all, we have discussed about regarding to the introduction of the statistics. So in case of introduction of statistics also, we required collection of data. And how the data can be collected. We know that what do you mean by data? Data is nothing but the processed form of information. Whatever the information we are going to be collected, right? So that is a raw form of information. If you are going to present it in a tabular form or in a pictorial representation, right? If you are going to segregate the heterogeneous into the homogeneous in nature, the categories or the similarities or based on the nature of the facts and figures or based on the type of the data, we are going to segregate the things in a numerical form. The same thing is being presented in a tabular form. So that is called as the processed form of information, that is nothing but the data. And how this data is being collected. Let us have discussion in this session that is regarding to the collection of data. So we know that collection means what? Assembling. Means we are going to assemble the data, the required form of the data, the same nature of data or the homogeneous form of data we are going to be assembled together. Then we then we are going to start for processing the data. Or it is nothing but the process of counting or enumerating or measuring together with the recording of results is called as the collection of data. So when we are going to have an inquiry in our investigation, that is the statistical inquiry, what we are going to be called as, that is the first preliminary step that we are going to have under a study of our knowledge, that is called as an inquiry. During that inquiry, we require for collection of the data. So we know that it is a common practice that the people receive large quantities of information every day through by conversations or by computers or through by newspapers or by radios or posters, notice, television. These are all the ways of collection of data. It is just because there are so much of information available that people need to be able to absorb and they have to select and it has to be some form of data has to be rejected. In everyday life, in business and industry, certain statistical information is necessary and it is independent to know where to find it and how to collect it. As the consequences, everybody has to compare the prices and the quality before making any decisions about what goods to buy. As employees of any firm, people want to compare their salaries and working conditions, promotions, opportunities, and so on. In time, the firms on their part want to control cost and expand their profits. One of the main function of statistics is to provide information which will help on making decisions. This statistics provides the type of information by providing a description of the present, a profile of the past, and estimate of the future. We are going to come across some of the objectives of the statistical information in terms of collection because we require to describe the methods of collecting the primary statistical information and to consider the status involved in carrying out a survey. And we also require to analyze the process involved in observation and interpretation. We require to analyze the basis of sampling and also we require to describe the variety of sampling methods. In statistical investigation is a comprehensive and a systematic collection of data about some group of people or objects, describing and organizing the data, analyzing the data with the help of different statistical methods, summarizing and analyzing and using these results for making judgments, decisions and predictions. The validity and accuracy of final judgment is the most crucial and depends heavily on how well the data was collected in the first place. Let us, when you are going to come across regarding the nature of data, there are three types of data we can able to see. One will be the time series data, the second one will be the spatial data, and the third one will be spatio-temporal data. What do you mean by this time series data means? This kind of data is being collected in the form of a set of numerical values over a period of time. The data might have been collected either at the regular intervals of time or irregular intervals of time. But when the data is being collected over a period of time, that is called as the time series data. And the second type of data we are going to come across, that is the spatial data. If the data is collected is connected with that of a place. According to the place, if you are going to have a collection of data, that is called as the spatial data. For example, when you are going to come across regarding to the population of Tamil Nadu, we can able to express in the form of some crores or some lakhs in terms of numbers, or it may be Andhra Pradesh or Kerala, okay, or it may be Pondicherry. These are all the data where we are going to express according to the place. That is regarding to the population. And let us go for the third one, that is called as the spatio-temporal data. How it will be means? If the data is collected and connected to the time as well as the place, then it is known as the spatio-temporal data. And this type of data we can able to have the collect the data with the help of different sources also. There are two types of data where we are going to come across. One will be the primary data. What do you mean by primary? Primary means initial data, the original data, or the data which is collected by the investigator for the first time, for himself, for the purpose of a specific inquiry or for the purpose of any particular study. When the data is collected for the first time, or the original data what we are going to be called, or for the any specific inquiry or any for specific study, if you are going to have the collection of the data, that is called as the primary data. And again, the primary data are being collected in five methods. One will be the direct personal interview. How this direct personal interview means? The persons from whom information are collected are known as the informants, or the people one who gives the information, they are called as the informants. The person one who collects is called as the investigator. The investigator personally meets them and asks questions together for the necessary information, and it is the suitable method for an intensive rather than an extensive field of survey. That is called as the personal interview type. And the next type of the primary data, method of primary data, that is called as indirect oral interview. Here we are not going to have a contact with the face to face. Under this method, the investigator will be contact or witnesses or the neighbors or through by the friends or with some other parties who are capable of supplying the necessary information. This method is preferred if the required information is an addition or a cause of a fire. For example, if a fire has broken out a certain place, the persons living in neighborhood and the witnesses are likely to give information on the cause of fire. Right? And the next type of data, that is called as the information from correspondence. When the investigator appoints some local agents or correspondents in different places and compiles the information sent by them, and the informations to newspapers and some of the departments of the government, we can able to come across this type of method. And whatever the thing is that the advantage of this method is nothing but one of the cheap and appropriate for the extensive investigations, but it may not be ensure the accurate results because the correspondents are likely to be the negligent and biased. And the next one is called as the mailed questionnaire method. Under this method, a list of questions is prepared and it is sent to all the informants by post. And the list of questions are technically, they are called as questionnaire. Covering the letters accompany the questionnaire which explains the purpose of investigation and the importance of the correct information. And the last is called as schedule sent through enumerators. Under this method, enumerators or the interviewers, those who are going to take the interview, has to schedule the time. They are going to meet the informants and fill in their replies. Often this distinction is being made between the schedule and a questionnaire. A schedule is nothing but a filled by the interviewers in a face-to-face situations with the informant. A questionnaire is filled by the informant whom he receives and returns by the post. It is suitable for the extensive surveys. So these are all the methods of primary data. Let us will go for the secondary data. We know that primary data means initially it is being collected by the investigator itself. That is collected for the first time. It is not collected by any other person. Then what is the other type of data means? It is called as the secondary data. Secondary data means the data which have already been collected by someone else, right? It is called as the secondary data. For its own use, you might have been collected. The same data we are going to make use of it for our study or for our inquiry. It is called as the secondary data. And in case of this secondary data, we are going to come across two types of sources. One will be in the form of published sources, another one will be in the form of unpublished sources. What is this published source of data means? So this published source of data are nothing but they are being published in the personal records. It may be of like the death certificates or some census or publications. So these are all the examples of the published data. Here we can able to see in the form of official publication of the Central Statistical Authority or the publication of Ministry of Health and other ministries, or we can able to see in the form of newspapers, journals, or some of the international publications. So these are all the published sources, and some of the unpublished sources are these statistical materials which are not always published. These are will be the various sources of unpublished data which is maintained by the various government only for the private use. So the precautions has to be taken when we are going to use the secondary data, that how the data has to be collected and processed regarding to the accuracy of data, and how the data has been summarized has to be seen whether it is possible to compare the data from one to the another. That is the unpublished form of data. Let us will go for some of the techniques that how we are going to collect the data. Now there we are going to come across two types of techniques. One will be the census techniques, another one will be the sampling technique. What is this census method or what is this census technique means? It is a complete enumeration survey method wherein each and every item in the universe is selected for the data collection. The universe might constitute a particular place, a group of people, or any specific locality, which is the complete set of items which are of interest in any particular situation. The census method is most commonly used by the government in connection with the national population, housing census, agricultural census, where the vast knowledge about these fields are required. Whenever the entire population is studied to collect the detailed data about every unit, then this census method will be applied. And the second method, that is called as the sample method. The sampling is nothing but a statistical method wherein a certain group of representative items is selected from the universe. They are called as the sample, on the basis of which the conclusion for the entire population is being drawn. So in case of sampling, the data are collected for few representative items of the universe which describes the characteristics of the population. This method is used to overcome the limitation of the census method, which is both costly as well as the time consuming. In case of techniques of data, uh, we can go in case of this sampling technique. Let us we have some of the methods of sampling. One it is called as random sampling or it is called as probability. Another one is the non-random sampling or non-probability sampling. What do you mean by this? Random means we are not going to be selected in case of this random sampling. It is a part of sampling technique where each sample has an equal probability of being chosen. A sample chosen randomly is meant to be an unbiased representation of the total population. In case of sampling, probability sampling, we are going to come across a few types. One will be simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and multi-stage sampling. So these are some of the methods of the sampling. Let us will go for the next type of sampling, that is not called as a non-probability sampling, where the equal importance is not being given to the all the items which are being considered for our inquiry. That is called as non-probability sampling. In case of non-probability sampling, again we are going to come across, one will be the convenience sampling, consecutive sampling, quota sampling, as well as the judgmental sampling. And let us will go for the next concept, that is called as the statistical error. What do you mean by this statistical error? We know that error is nothing but the mistake, or it is nothing but an disturbance where we are going to be come across. A statistical error is nothing but the amount by which an observation differs from the expected value. So later it has been based on the whole population from which the statistical units are being chosen randomly. In case of statistical errors, uh, uh, we are going to come across, one will be the biased sampling errors. In the case of statistical error, there are two types. One is sampling errors, another one is the non-sampling error. What do you mean by this sampling error? Means the error caused by observing a sample instead of the whole population. That is called as the sampling error. Again, in case of sampling error, we are going to receive, one is the biased error, another one is the unbiased. These biased errors is being existed due to the based on the views of the informants and the investigators error in the defective measurement or the defective sampling, and unbiased are exist naturally or suddenly without any bias. The next one is the non-sampling errors. The non-sampling errors are other than the statistical errors, where they are going to arise due to the negligence or lack of knowledge, defectiveness, and misunderstanding. Again, we are going to see in case of non-sampling, one is the absolute error, another one is the relative error. So these are all the statistical error. So with this, I am going to conclude the thing. So with this, I am going to end the session. Thank you.